report has it that abuse of men happens far more often than we expect. However, men are often reluctant to report cases of abuse because obviously many of them feel embarrassed and also the fear that they won't be believed or people even accept that a woman can actually physically abuse you. However, we found that men complain, on the other hand, about emotional abuse on the parts of women. So I'd like to ask you, what are your thoughts on this? Do you feel, especially for a man, do you feel you've been emotionally abused? And if yes, we'd like to hear your stories. You can join the conversation on 070-806-68014. You can also tweet us at TVC Connect. Please hashtag #TVC so we can read your tweets. So, as I said, there's a lot of issue of physical abuse when people say, oh, a woman has been abused. But a lot of men don't open up to say they've also been physically abused. Or emotionally. Some men have been physically abused, and we must acknowledge that. Yeah. However, a lot of men have actually complained more of that emotional abuse on the part of women. I'd like to hear your thoughts on how does a woman, or how can a woman emotionally abuse a man, especially because our guest, Igwe, came... what's his name again? Noble Igwe came here last week, and he mentioned that sometimes women, when they say certain things, it can be hurtful. So let me hear your thoughts on this. Do you think a woman can actually emotionally abuse a husband, and how can this be done?
Of course. I think the biggest, we cannot overemphasize the fact that women actually emotionally abuse men. It happens every time, and because it's not physical abuse that you can see the bruises. You can't measure the damage you're doing to the man. So a man can feel bruised, but he's unable, he can't show what you've done. If a woman gets slapped, you can say that, oh, he slapped me here, oh, he tore my clothes, this is what he did. But the emotional abuse is worse. And the challenge is that most women don't even know that the statements they are making is exerting emotional damage to the man. That is the real challenge, and that's why I'm happy we're discussing this, because at least now we're able to bring up a mirror for women to look into themselves and understand that, oh, this is what I'm doing. Yes. I'm actually emotionally damaging my husband. That wasn't my intention. I felt like I'm just motivating him or I'm challenging him.
When I was pondering on this, because I remember the drama that happened last year, December, where I spoke carelessly and said something so stupid that caused a lot of grief in my home, and my husband was obviously hurt. He understood and appreciated that it was not my intention. That's not what I meant. But I must also accept that I was careless and how I said it came out the wrong way. And that's how sometimes we do these things carelessly without even thinking of the repercussion of this act. So sometimes women, I like what you used, looking in the mirror today, and we must talk to each other and see how we must caution the way we speak, such that we don't emotionally damage what we have. Let me come to you, Mary.
There's something about emotional abuse, which is, especially when it has to do with a husband being emotionally abused or children being emotionally abused by their parents. The victims usually are not even aware that they're going through abuse. Right. When I was reading about it, most men did not recognize that was what they were facing. The way you have been brought up is to be strong, is to be the man. Because your voice is louder, you already feel like you're in control. But then there are things that someone could be saying to you constantly that, embarrasses you, almost dehumanizes you, makes you feel less than. And it's hard for a man to accept that this female, what the Bible would say, soft-spoken, weaker sex is actually the one abusing me. And that happens with children. When children tell you how they were brought up, sometimes say, oh, I love my mother, but the way she used to insult me and beat me. And the mother will be so proud of the way she brought up a child. Do you understand? So a lot of emotional abuse now has to do with education. We need to understand what it is, what exactly it means when you insult people. It's not always, that is not the African way of bringing people up. Is actually abuse. We need to understand that when you constantly call people names, when you put them in such a situation where they have to...
Right. When you belittle them.
Yeah, when you belittle them. Yes, husband or child, that is emotional abuse.
Okay, let me come to
Thank you to all three of you for discussing the topic from a safe point. But trust me to want to go with what I've seen to the very extreme. Women who deliberately tongue lash in response or to reciprocate whatever danger or harm they think they've suffered from their spouses, so they know what they're doing. Women who would serve their husbands maybe after a fight and fling the food at him. That's your food, like you were giving a dog his food. Women who would wake up in the morning and have a field day, and I've been guilty of that as well. Just tongue lashing from morning till night to push the person to the edge, to provoke and do all those things. There are women who deliberately do these things to their spouses, knowing that I didn't slap you now. Did I raise my hand at you? I've not hurt you in any way, thinking it's only physical that could damage. And they know they would go back and do it again. So I had an auntie explain to me once that whenever she's pregnant, she's always hormonal. She can just be shouting. And she would make her husband leave the bed, cause a tough home for the husband. The man would just, okay, let me not leave this room. So people are not asking us because they have family members living. Why am I sleeping outside? And he will sleep on the floor, and then she will still wake up and kick him. Go crawl there. So these are serious issues. We'd like to discuss it from the place of take name calling. Like name calling is a big deal. Don't misunderstand me. Okay. Putting it in the bracket like we do it to all men. Now, we're talking in marriages, women who deliberately lord that using their tongue to control. So, and in the most harshest way.
Women were naturally verbally strong.
These are safe zones to discuss it. So she can then, some soft school, me, they're more. They've done it, but they can find an escape. But there are women who would own it and do it deliberately, and all they want to do is deliberately demean that man, or at some point push him into lack of confidence by continually doing that. So we have those categories of women.
So, okay, let me take this call from Peter and come to Nima. Peter, are you there? Thanks for calling.
Yeah, good morning.
Morning. Go ahead, please.
First time caller.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah, I really appreciate your program. You ladies made my morning beautiful every day.
Thank you.
Yeah, what an interesting topic today. I don't know why men are not calling, because it should be
waiting for us to make a mistake.
Interest. I want to talk about abuse, emotional abuse in the place of romance. I mean, you are a man, you are with your wife, and, you know, in the other room, you guys are together, you start, you know, doing what you're supposed to do, and suddenly the woman will pause and remind you, honey, you know this money for this kid, not giving me.
It is.
Money for that, and all of a sudden the man is like off balance, and I mean, these are things that men don't want.
My dear brother Peter, let me respond to that. You see, it's not that woman's fault. They taught us in marriage counseling.
That's the time to ask your question.
They taught us that in marriage counseling. That when everything is ready and a guy is about to...
Just switch the question.
I know it's a bad training.
It's a bargaining power.
It's wrong. That's manipulative.
I believe that is manipulative.
So don't.
Thank you for bringing that up, Peter.
It's a bad technique they teach you in marriage counseling, and it's wrong.
Yeah.
That's manipulative.
Because the man is feeling manipulated, that you're catching me at my weak point.
Yes.
And you're now using it to get what you want, and it shouldn't be.
Okay, so Martin Dubisi agrees with you. He says a lot of women abuse us in the other room by telling us we're not good enough or comparing us with their ex. How do you compare someone or our down below is too small?
Hey.
How do women do that?
Mr.
George says.
Okay, this teacher.
That's why
so
the Bible
George
says,
dear future wifey, I'm a very, very emotional man, and I love you very, very much. So please take it easy with me, please. I think that men are emotionally abused.
So Ayo Bade Joko says, women should learn to verbally appreciate little efforts done by their men and not assume it's their responsibility. Washing the car, buying fuel for the house, filling up the car tank, doing school runs, paying school fees, buying groceries and provision. I think that a lot of women enjoy words of affirmation, but we just take it that he's doing what a man should do. He has done what he should do. Why should I be thanking him for doing what every man should do? I think, please, you know we're looking in the mirror, women today. Please, women,
let me take.
Appreciate your spouse.
Yakub, thanks for calling. Go ahead, please. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to the coach, everybody in the studio. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Women will pass through different emotional structure as well. The two things that I normally pass in my own marriage is this. You may be surprised what I'm about to say now, right? I think the beginning of this
last week, you brought one guest when you are discussing about gambling. Morayo, the man mentioned that some of us, we are so addicted to this your two program. I can tell you, Morayo, it's true. It's true because I found out that if I'm at home and then you are about to start this program, my wife knew that I can never do without not watching this program. And then she always brought one issue. By the time you want to start this program, that's almost tonight. So you wanted to start an issue discussing with me. I always tell her that, come. You can only discuss with me after this program. Just fine. And then I found out that anytime I told her that, she always said that, are you telling me this program is more important than me this? I said, okay. From today, just give me 1 hour. If you want to discuss with me, let it be after 10. And then another thing is that you know that when Steffi is playing games, and I only go watch ball. I don't like watching ball at home. You will say that you want to watch ball or you want us to discuss. I said, no, I'm going to watch ball. When I'm coming back, it's okay, can't you sit down at home watching ball? I can enjoy watching ball at home. So this thing always build arguments every time. So they're saying that she made sure that
okay. So let me give you.
And then they call us.
Yakub, let me try to help you.
Up till now, we are not agree on this. And then
okay, Yakub.
Out of this.
Yakub, let me try to deal with this issue for a second. So, do you have PVR? The decoder that helps you to explore, that lets you record. Because that could help you solve the problem. Yeah. So, if at 9 o'clock, the ladies of you start, put it on recording. The light can go off now. Put it on record, and that moment she wants to talk to you, let the play run, let it run, and then give her that few moments. What you're communicating to her is that she's the most important person to you at that moment. And that's what you should communicate. And that's what she wants to know. Yes. So yes, you love the show, but put it on record. And then after you have the conversation, you can then play back and watch later. But you know,
apart from that, if you do not have that, it's also communicating. So she gives you the 1 hour. Look for another hour during your day that you give to her, and she knows that this is her time. And every time, even just make it like a fun fair, you know, and she knows that, oh, this is the 1 hour. Every time she'll be like, oh, okay, because you know you took that 1 hour, that's why you're doing this. You know, just make it communicate and make it playful.
Just like Tokwe said, today we are actually just looking at the mirror, all women. So it would be nice for everybody to go back home, think about your own relationships, even in regular relationships, not necessarily marriage all the time. Because there are a lot of men that are actually broken before they now get into marriage because of experiences they've had, either in universities and all that. So let us review our spouse and review our own behaviors, what we say, how we say it, our body language.
Don't say, I'm always aggressive. I'm naturally aggressive.
In the car, I'm always loud. I'm always like this. My husband already knows that I'm complaining about his driving. I won't say it to I'm like,
just be respectful.
That in itself speaks volumes. So please, let us caution ourselves and fix this. Have a fabulous day. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.